The marble floors of Liberty Trust Bank shimmered under the afternoon sun, polished to a mirror-like gleam. Grace Walker, 62, stepped through the revolving doors with a quiet authority that seemed to hush the room. Her silver hair was cropped sharp, her charcoal suit tailored to perfection, her eyes carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken battles. She moved with purpose, each step deliberate, as if she'd walked through storms too fierce to falter now. The lobby pulsed with the sterile hum of wealth. Clicking heels, the soft whir of printers, murmured conversations behind glass walls. At the counter, a young teller named Jason glanced up. His smile was thin, a practiced mask that didn't touch his eyes. "Ma'am," he said, voice flat. "The welfare office is down the street. This is a private bank." A ripple of attention spread, heads turned. A man in a pinstripe suit smirked. A young woman in line frowned but stayed silent. Grace paused, her gaze steady, letting the insults settle into the air. Without a word, she reached into her leather purse and placed a withdrawal slip on the counter. "I'd like to withdraw $40,000, 0 cents, she said, her voice soft but edged with steel. Jason's laugh was sharp, meant to sting. 40 grand? That's cute. You people always have a story." The room grew heavier, the air thick with judgment. Grace didn't flinch. She adjusted the pearl brooch on her lapel and waited, her silence louder than any retort. Behind her, Elena, an older woman in a janitor's uniform, froze, her mop dripping onto the floor. She recognized that look, the same defiant tilt of the chin her mother wore when a landlord turned them away in '72. Jason tapped the counter, impatient. "Ma'am, I'll need ID." "Assuming you have an account here," his sarcasm dripped like venom. From her wallet, Grace produced a platinum debit card, its Liberty Trust emblem catching the light, and her ID. Jason barely glanced at them. "Fake ones get better every year," he said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Murmurs spread. A man in line muttered about scammers. The security guard, James, shifted uncomfortably but stayed put. No one intervened. Grace's heartbeat remained steady. She'd faced colder rooms, boardrooms where men dismissed her, clients who mistook her kindness for weakness. But this wasn't just business, it was personal. The sting wasn't the insult itself, but its casual ease, the assumption she didn't belong. "You might want to remember my name," she said quietly. Jason scoffed. "Oh, I'm sure I will." The tension stretched, taut as a wire. The clock above clicked to 12:15. Linda Prescott, the branch manager, emerged from her glass office, heels clicking sharply. "Jason, what's the issue?" she asked, her tone clipped. "This lady's trying to withdraw $40,000, 0 cents, he replied, emphasizing lady. "Claims she has a platinum account, doesn't look right." Linda's gaze swept over Grace like she was appraising a thrift store find. "Ma'am, we have procedures for high-value transactions. Proof of employment? Source of funds?" Grace met her eyes, unflinching. "I have everything you need." Linda's smile was brittle. "We have to be careful. So many scams these days." Elena, still clutching her mop, took a step forward but stopped, bound by the rules of her role. She'd seen this scene before, too many times. But Grace wasn't shrinking. She wasn't apologizing for existing. Leaning slightly on the counter, Grace's voice cut through the room, soft but razor-sharp. "You think you're protecting the bank? You're protecting your prejudice." Jason blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said, her tone steady. "You don't see customers. You see categories." A young woman in line, Maya Flores, pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over the record button. Notifications pinged as others followed suit. The lobby was waking up. Jason straightened, trying to regain control. "Ma'am, if you don't calm down, I'll call security." Grace's smile was small, weary. "Calm is all I've been for 62 years. Their eyes locked, youth's arrogance meeting experience as steel. Linda cleared her throat. "Jason, process the verification." He hesitated, then typed, his screen a pause. "This account shows irregularities. A lie, smooth and practiced." Grace's hands stayed folded on the counter. Her whisper carried like a shout. "Do what you need to do. I'm not leaving." Outside, Chicago's traffic rolled on, oblivious. Inside, the air shifted, heavy with something unspoken. Elena caught Grace's eye across the lobby, a spark of recognition, the shared exhaustion of women who'd spent lifetimes holding ground in hostile rooms. Grace gave a slight nod. Not today. The clock ticked to 12:20. Jason sighed. Dramatic! You're wasting everyone's time. Grace's gaze swept the room, faces staring, filming, judging. She felt the weight of history behind her, generations told to sit down, to wait, to disappear. Straightening, she smoothed her jacket and looked Jason in the eye. No, she said. I'm teaching it a lesson. The silence was deafening. The clock's tick filled the void like a pulse. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city. Inside, Grace's stillness was defiance, her patience a quiet power. When the speaker announced an executive meeting at 1 o'clock, Jason muttered, "Yeah, right." Grace's faint smile hinted at knowledge he lacked. She placed her ID and card back on the counter, whispering, "Let's see if your meeting starts on time." The lobby of Liberty Trust Bank felt like a stage, the marble floor a spotlight where Grace Walker stood, unyielding. The air was thick, charged with whispers and the faint hum of phones recording every second. Maya Flores, the young journalist in line, had gone live, her camera steady on Grace's composed figure. Banking discrimination, downtown Chicago, she narrated softly, her voice trembling with quiet fury. Her stream surged, 200 viewers, then 2,000, climbing fast. Grace's hands rested on the counter, elegant and still, as Jason, the teller, leaned back, his smirk fading under the weight of her gaze. "Ma'am, we need employment verification for a withdrawal this size," he said, his tone sharper now, doubling down. Grace's eyes didn't waver. "I work for myself," she replied, calm as a still lake. Jason's chuckle was hollow. "Of course you do." Behind her, Elena, the janitor, tightened her grip on her mop. She'd seen that dismissive sneer before, decades ago, aimed at her mother, her neighbors, herself. The memory burned, but Grace's steady presence held the room like gravity. Linda Prescott, the branch manager, crossed her arms, her voice smooth but cutting. "We'll need to run this through our verification system. It may take a while. Please step aside." Grace didn't move. "I'll wait here," she said, her words soft but immovable. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Maya's phone buzzed, 10,000 viewers now, then 12,000. Her narration grew bolder. "This woman has ID, a platinum account card, and they're still stalling her." Comments flooded the stream. "Disgusting, she's so calm. Call the news." Across Chicago, screens lit up as people tuned in during lunch breaks. Jason leaned toward Linda, his voice low but not low enough. "Let's make her wait. She'll leave." Grace heard every word, her expression unchanging. Her patience wasn't weakness. It was precision, a blade honed over years of navigating rooms that tried to erase her. A man in line, his suit rumpled from a long morning, stepped forward. "If she has the documents, why can't you process it?" he asked, voice tight. Linda's smile was brittle. "Sir, this is a security matter." "Don't interfere," he muttered. "That's not security, that's bias." The room shifted. Some customers nodded, others stayed silent, arms crossed. Maya's stream hit 18,000 viewers. The security guard James stood by the door, his radio crackling. "Regional director's on his way," a voice hissed from the back office. The air tightened. Grace's phone buzzed softly. A message flashed. "Executive board meeting, 1 p.m. She turned it face down, her lips curving faintly. Linda tapped her watch. "Ma'am, I need you to step aside." Grace's response was velvet over steel. "And I need you to treat customers equally." Jason rolled his eyes. "We treat everyone equally. That's policy." Maya's camera panned, catching 2 white customers served swiftly at the next counter, while Grace waited, unacknowledged. The contrast was stark, undeniable. The stream's chat erupted. "This is proof. Someone call the NAACP." James exhaled, his radio crackling again. Maya whispered into her phone, "Something's happening." She's not surprised. The lobby pulsed with tension, no longer sterile, but alive with conflict. Grace's stillness drew eyes like a magnet. A few customers edged closer, pulled by the quiet drama unfolding. Jason raised his voice, trying to reclaim control. "Look, lady, we can't just hand out 40 grand to anyone who walks in." Grace tilted her head. Anyone? She repeated softly. Or someone like me? The question landed like a stone in still water, rippling through the room. Jason's mouth opened, but no words came. Maya's viewer count hit 23,400. National journalists began quoting the stream, tagging Liberty Trust in outrage. Linda whispered to Jason, "Stall her until David gets here." He nodded, typing nonsense on his keyboard. Grace glanced at the clock's reflection in the polished counter, 12:40, 20 minutes to 1 p.m. Her faint smile grew, a quiet promise. Maya's voice carried across the lobby. "If anyone knows Liberty Trust's corporate number, call them. The world's watching." Grace met Maya's eyes, a fleeting exchange of gratitude and resolve. "Keep filming," she said, barely audible. The speaker crackled, "Executive meeting in 30 minutes. Grace's smile deepened, as if she held a secret the room couldn't yet grasp. Outside, traffic roared past, unaware of the storm brewing within. The live stream rolled on, unfiltered, unstoppable, carrying Grace's quiet defiance to thousands. The doors swung open, and David Lee, the regional director, strode in, his navy suit crisp but his jaw tight with irritation. "What's going on?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Linda hurried to him, smoothing her blazer. "This woman's attempting a $40,000 0 cents withdrawal. No appointment, no income verification." Jason flagged irregularities. David's gaze landed on Grace, who met it without a flinch. "Ma'am," he said, condescension lacing his tone, "if you cooperate, we can resolve this quickly. Our protocols protect legitimate customers." Grace's voice was even, unshaken. "I am a legitimate customer, Mr. Lee, and more, a stakeholder in this institution." David frowned. "Stakeholder?" Grace opened her leather portfolio, producing a silver business card case. She placed a card on the counter. "Grace Walker, founder and chairwoman, Walker Financial Group." Jason scoffed. "Anyone can print those?" But David froze, the name sparking a memory. Board reports, shareholder files, acquisition records. His eyes widened. "Walker Financial owns 29% of Liberty Trust," he murmured. The lobby went silent. Linda paled. Jason's smirk vanished. Maya's camera zoomed in, her stream exploding past 30,000 viewers. Grace's tone remained soft, deliberate. "I came as a customer today to see how your people treat someone they don't recognize. Someone who doesn't fit their idea of belonging." The silence was suffocating. Maya's feed lit up. "She owns the bank? Justice in real time." David swallowed hard. "Miss Walker, I had no idea." "I know," Grace said gently. "That's the point." She gestured to Jason and Linda. "They assumed. Assumptions are the oldest prejudice." The weight of her words pressed down, unyielding, as the clock ticked closer to 1 p.m. The marble lobby of Liberty Trust Bank felt like a courtroom, with Grace Walker as both witness and judge. Her presence, calm and unyielding, held the room captive. Maya Flores's live stream surged past 60,000 viewers, her camera locked on Grace's serene face as she faced David Lee, the regional director. The air was electric, every word a spark. Comments flooded the feed. "She's a legend. They didn't see her coming." Grace's voice cut through the tension, soft but piercing. "This isn't about me," she said, her eyes moving from David to Jason, then Linda. "It's about every person told their money isn't real, their voice doesn't matter, their place isn't here." She opened her leather portfolio, revealing neatly arranged documents. Her phone buzzed. A notification glowed. Senate Financial Committee monitoring live feed. She turned it toward David. "You're streaming this," he said, voice tight. Grace shook her head. "Not me. The truth is—" She nodded toward Maya, whose lens captured every flicker of emotion. Linda's eyes darted to the camera, then back to David. "Sir, perhaps a private office?" she whispered. Grace's response was immediate, sharp. "Private? This became public the moment you made a spectacle of my skin color." A gasp rippled through the crowd. The words landed like a verdict, heavy and true. Outside, news vans screeched to a halt, their sirens faint through the glass. Inside, the lobby trembled under Grace's quiet authority. David's phone buzzed, corporate headquarters texting updates. Executives were watching, stockholders were calling. The incident was now a crisis. Grace placed another card on the counter, its Liberty Trust emblem gleaming. Below it, smaller text read, Board of Directors, Voting Member. David's face paled. "You're on the board," he said weakly. "I don't just sit on the board," Grace replied. "I helped build it." Gasps echoed. Jason stumbled back, his bravado gone. Linda clutched her clipboard, her composure cracking. Maya's stream hit 90,000 viewers, comments a cascade of awe. She's rewriting history right now. Grace's expression softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. "Mr. Lee, you have a choice. Pretend this is a misunderstanding, or admit your system is broken from the inside." David didn't respond. His phone buzzed again. Corporate crisis team activated. Grace turned slightly toward Maya's camera. "I didn't plan this," she said quietly, "but I'm not surprised. I've watched this pattern for years. Today the world sees it too." The clock ticked to 12:50. The speaker crackled. "Executive meeting in 10 minutes. Grace's faint smile returned, a quiet promise of what was coming. The doors burst open and Robert Mills, president of Liberty Trust, strode in, his face pale under the fluorescent lights. He'd been briefed en route, a viral stream of discrimination scandal, and Grace Walker at its heart. His steps faltered when he saw her. "Grace," he said softly, as if her name could calm the storm. "I didn't expect—" Grace turned, her smile faint but knowing. "You didn't expect I'd come as a customer, Robert. Isn't that what we built this bank for?" Maya's camera caught every word, her stream now mirrored on national news outlets, viewer count soaring past 100,000. Robert approached cautiously. "We're deeply sorry for this misunderstanding." Grace's tone was firm. "It's not a misunderstanding when it's a pattern, you know that." David avoided her gaze. Linda's clipboard trembled. Jason stared at the floor, his arrogance dissolved. Grace drew several sheets from her portfolio, documents required, disclosure, legal documents, audit summaries, compliance data. "These are your internal discrimination reports," she said. 47 complaints in 6 months, 76% dismissed without review, most from Black or Latino customers. Robert's throat tightened as he glanced at the papers. "Mr. Walker, we're handling those through proper channels." Grace tilted her head. "Are you? Or are you hoping no one notices until it stops trending?" The crowd shifted, uneasy. Maya's lens captured Grace's calm, a stark contrast to the nervous energy around her. She placed another document on the counter, stamped with an official seal. "Equal Credit Opportunity Act, Section 701, she said. "Discrimination based on race, color, or national origin is a federal violation. You're not just breaking trust, Robert, you're breaking the law." A woman in the crowd whispered, "She's schooling them in their own lobby." Grace continued, her voice unwavering. "You built this bank for security, but what's security worth if it's built on exclusion?" Her gaze locked on Linda. "You humiliated a customer because she didn't fit your idea of success. To Jason, you called me a fraud before knowing my name. To David, and you justified it with protocols. Every one of you played a part." David swallowed. "Ms. Walker, I'll resign if necessary." Grace's response was gentle but firm. "Resignation isn't accountability, change is." Robert took a deep breath. "What do you want, Grace?" Her answer was immediate. Reform. She laid 5 documents on the counter, headers bold. Walker Standards. The first outlined mandatory empathy and bias training. 60 hours annually for every employee, from tellers to executives. "You don't fix hearts with handbooks," she said. "You do it through education." The second proposed anonymous review stations in every branch for reporting bias without fear. The third detailed an AI system, developed with MIT, to flag biased language or treatment in real time. "Technology exposed this," Grace said, nodding at Maya's camera. "It can prevent it too." The fourth called for a $50 million, 0 cents community fund for minority-owned businesses and financial literacy. You take from the community, you give back. The fifth demanded quarterly public reports on discrimination cases and reforms. "You can't hide from sunlight," she told Robert. The lobby was silent. Even James, the security guard, looked moved. Robert's hands trembled as he scanned the documents. "These are ambitious," he said cautiously. Implementation would cost millions. Grace didn't blink. Prejudice costs more. The silence stretched. Robert looked around, at the tellers, the customers, Maya's camera, Grace. He nodded. "We'll do it." Grace exhaled, releasing years of weight. "This is the beginning, not the end." Jason stepped forward, voice cracking. "Ms. Walker, I didn't mean—" She met his eyes, softer now. "I know, but meaning well isn't doing right. Learn the difference." He nodded, tears forming. Grace turned to Robert. "I'll oversee implementation personally. Make it about restoring your soul, not just your reputation." The marble lobby of Liberty Trust Bank was no longer just a bank. It was a crucible, forged by Grace Walker's unyielding presence. Her voice, soft but resolute, lingered in the air as she faced Robert Mills, the bank's president. The Walker standards lay on the counter, 5 documents that held the weight of reform. Maya Flores's live stream surged past 120,000 viewers, her camera capturing every nuance, the tremble in Robert's hands, the defeat in Jason's eyes, the crack in Linda's composure. Grace's gaze was steady, her silver hair catching the light. "This isn't about saving your reputation, Robert," she said. "It's about rebuilding trust." Robert nodded, his usual boardroom polish dulled by the moment. "Grace, I give you my word." Her response was quiet but firm. "Don't give me words, give me results." The crowd held its breath. Phones still recording, the stream's comment section a flood of awe. "She's rewriting the rules." Maya's voice, low and urgent, narrated, "This is history unfolding. Grace Walker, a board member, just laid out a plan to change this bank from the inside." Outside, news vans crowded the curb, their lights flashing through the glass doors. Inside, the lobby pulsed with the gravity of change. Grace gathered her documents, her movements deliberate, and glanced at the clock. 1:05 p.m. The executive meeting had begun, but the real reckoning was here. Robert cleared his throat. Walker will start implementing your standards immediately. I'll call an emergency board meeting." Grace's faint smile carried both pain and power. "Make sure it's not just a meeting. Make it a movement." She turned to Maya, acknowledging her camera for the first time. "Thank you for showing the world what truth looks like." Maya nodded, her hands steady despite the weight of the moment. Linda, clutching her clipboard, tried to speak. "Ms. Walker, Grace raised a hand, silencing her with gentle authority. "You didn't see me, you saw your assumptions. Fix that first." Linda's face flushed, her eyes dropping. Jason, still pale, muttered, "I'm sorry." Grace looked at him, her expression softening but unyielding. "Sorry starts with learning. Start there." The security guard, James, stood straighter now, his radio silent. He'd watched the scene unfold, his earlier hesitation replaced by quiet respect. A woman in the crowd whispered, "She's not just fighting for herself." Another nodded, her phone still filming. The stream hit 150,000 viewers, with news outlets across the country quoting Grace's words, "You don't fix hearts with handbooks." Grace closed her portfolio, the sound sharp in the hushed lobby. She glanced at the tall glass windows where Chicago's first snow dusted the streets. "I came here as a customer," she said, her voice carrying to every corner. "But I'm leaving as a reminder. Dignity isn't negotiable." The crowd parted as she moved toward the doors, her heels clicking softly on the marble. No one spoke. The silence was reverence. As the doors closed behind her, applause erupted, not polite, but raw, human, grateful. It echoed through the lobby, a sound that felt like justice taking root. Maya lowered her phone, her eyes wet. That, she whispered to her viewers, was Grace Walker. The stream's comments exploded. Icon, queen, changemaker. The world was watching, and it wouldn't forget. Outside, Grace stepped into the cold, her breath visible in the air. News crews swarmed, microphones thrusting forward, but she raised a hand, calm as ever. "The story's not mine," she said. "It's everyone's who's been unseen." She walked away, her figure sharp against the snowy street, leaving reporters scrambling to capture her words. Inside, Robert gathered his team, his voice shaking. We start today. Training, systems, the fund, everything she outlined. David nodded, his earlier arrogance gone. I'll oversee the AI integration personally. Linda, still rattled, said nothing. Jason, wiping his eyes, whispered, I didn't know. Robert looked at him. Now you do. Do better. By evening, the story had spread beyond Chicago. National headlines read, Bank board member exposed as discrimination in viral moment. Maya's documentary, pieced together from her live stream, was already in production, titled The Day Grace Walked In. Social media buzzed with her name, her image, her words. The hashtag Walker Standards trended globally, a call for accountability in every industry. A week later, Liberty Trust announced the first steps of reform. Empathy training began, with Jason attending the inaugural session, his notebook filled with earnest scribbles. Anonymous review stations appeared in every branch, their screens glowing with invitations to speak. The AI system, still in testing, flagged biased interactions with startling accuracy. The $50 million Zero Cents Community Fund launched, with applications pouring in from minority-owned businesses. Grace didn't return to the bank that month, but her presence lingered. Employees whispered her name with a mix of awe and fear. Customers, especially those long overlooked, felt a shift. Tellers smiled more, listened harder. The quarterly report, published online as promised, detailed 12 resolved discrimination cases, a small but real start. Grace reviewed it from her office at Walker Financial, her expression unreadable but satisfied. Maya, now a voice for change, met Grace for coffee in a quiet downtown cafe. You changed everything, Maya said, her camera off for once. Grace shook her head. I just held a mirror. The world chose to look. She sipped her tea, her eyes distant but warm. Keep telling stories, Maya. The truth needs you. The reforms rippled outward. Other banks adopted similar measures, citing Liberty Trust as a model. The Federal Reserve praised the Walker Standards as a benchmark for equitable banking. Grace's words echoed in boardrooms, classrooms, and online forums. Dignity isn't negotiable. Her story wasn't just a moment, it was a movement, reshaping how institutions saw their customers and themselves. Back at Liberty Trust, James, the security guard, took a new role, training staff on customer integrity. She didn't just change the bank, he told a reporter. She changed me. Linda left for a nonprofit, dedicating herself to inclusive leadership. David, humbled, wrote Grace a letter. You taught me accountability. Jason, now a speaker on bias, carried her lesson like a torch. As winter deepened, Grace walked through Chicago's streets, unnoticed by most. But in every bank, every lobby, every place where dignity had been denied, her shadow loomed large. She'd turned a single moment of prejudice into a standard for change, proving that quiet courage could move mountains. A year later, the Global Financial Equity Summit glittered under New York City lights, its ballroom filled with tailored suits, poised cameras, and investors who once saw only numbers. Tonight, the focus was Grace Walker. She stood at the center of the stage, her silver hair pinned elegantly, her presence both commanding and warm. The audience leaned in, knowing her story, the viral moment that shook Liberty Trust Bank, the reforms that followed, the woman who turned indignity into a movement. Dignity, Grace began, her voice steady, resonant, is the currency of trust. Without it, no bank, no system holds value. The room was silent, hanging on her words. They knew the viral video, the live stream that exposed bias in real time, the Walker Standards that rewrote an industry. What they didn't expect was her calm focus on forgiveness. I didn't want revenge, she said. I wanted recognition for every person this system forgot. Since that day in Chicago, Liberty Trust had transformed. Under Robert Mills's leadership and Grace's oversight, the Walker Standards were not just implemented, but embraced. Every branch now hosted empathy training, with tellers and executives alike learning to see beyond assumptions. Anonymous feedback stations glowed in lobbies, inviting honesty without fear. The AI bias detection system, once a prototype, was now an industry standard, flagging unfair treatment with precision. The numbers spoke volumes. Customer satisfaction among minority clients soared by 50%. Discrimination complaints dropped by over half. The $50 million Zero Cents Community Fund had financed 400 minority-owned businesses and provided financial literacy to thousands of families. But the real change was human. Jason, the teller who once mocked Grace, now spoke at universities about unconscious bias, his humility a quiet testament to her impact. "She didn't shame me," he told students. "She showed me how to be better." Linda Prescott, the former manager, had joined a nonprofit, training leaders in inclusive practices. David Lee, the regional director, wrote Grace a letter published in The Atlantic. "You didn't destroy us. You taught us accountability." Even James, the security guard, now led Liberty Trust's Customer Integrity Division, ensuring no one else faced Grace's ordeal. "She changed me," he told a reporter, his voice thick with gratitude. Maya Flores, the journalist whose live stream sparked the reckoning, was now Liberty Trust's communications director. Her documentary, The Day Grace Walked In, premiered at Sundance, earning standing ovations and igniting global conversations about bias in finance. Grace didn't just expose a problem, Maya said in her director's statement. She built the solution. Grace listened to these stories quietly, seeking no credit. Her satisfaction came from the ripples, how one moment of standing firm had reshaped a system. Other banks adopted Walker's standards. The Federal Reserve cited Liberty Trust's reforms as a model for equitable banking. International conferences quoted Grace's words as lessons in ethical leadership. "You can't hide from sunlight." On stage, she closed her keynote with a faint smile. "When I walked into that bank, I didn't know cameras were rolling. Maybe that's what justice looks like now, transparency that can't be turned off." She paused, her gaze sweeping the audience. "To everyone who's been dismissed or doubted, your worth isn't decided by who sees it. It's decided by who you choose to be when no one does." The applause was slow, reverent, lasting. It wasn't for victory, it was for gratitude. Grace stepped off the stage, her heels echoing softly down the marble corridor. A young reporter caught her at the door. "Miss Walker, what's your legacy?" Grace turned, her eyes reflecting the city's glow. "Legacy? That's not mine to decide, but if someone walks into a bank and is treated with respect, that's enough." She stepped into the Manhattan night, her figure sharp against the silver snow. Grace's story had begun as a quiet confrontation in a Chicago lobby and ended as a revolution. She never shouted, never sought attention, never craved revenge. She stood her ground with unshakable dignity, exposing not just one bank's bias, but the fractures in a system meant to serve all, yet designed for few. Her courage proved justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet, composed, refusing to walk away when walking away is easier. Grace didn't destroy Liberty Trust, she redefined it. Showing accountability and compassion could rebuild trust stronger than profit. Her influence stretched beyond finance, healthcare, retail, education. Industries began adopting Walker's standards, recognizing fairness as a principle, not a policy. For millions watching her story online, Grace was more than resilience. She was proof that one person's quiet courage could change how a nation does business. Her lesson was simple yet profound. Dignity has no price, but its absence costs everything. In a world divided by assumptions, her story asked us to pause and reflect. How do I see others? What do I defend when no one else will? If Grace's journey moved you, if it sparked reflection or renewed faith in integrity's power, join us. Subscribe, share her story, and be part of a community celebrating justice and truth. Your support amplifies stories that remind the world, when dignity stands tall, change begins.